Hi, my name is Belina. Growing up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in a multiracial household, my mother wanted to make sure that her children were aware of our history. From the age of 2, my mother would have my brother, sister, and I at her booth where she sold her products during the Juneteenth festival in the early 1990s. She made daishikis and kufis, all from material she received from a friend who frequently traveled to Africa. My mother instilled our African heritage in all of her children because she felt, though, our history was a part of us and something that should not ever be hidden. We did African drumming circles with all of the other children. We tried different dishes that were traditional food items to the first of the African Americans to be on land. Celebrating the day that people were not informed of until 2.5 years that they were free from slavery is a day to be proud and to celebrate. I am a humanely human. For so many years, the Black culture is humiliated and treated unhumane, like which must cease. These people were our ancestors and deserve the proper respects while the earth is still round. Could you imagine how it would feel to not ever fully know your history, lied to for centuries, and killed for the color of your skin? Our history is gloomy, as others are just dark. Let's shed light to one another and take care of each other, as this is the only life we have. Love everyone, and together we can share our cultures. Our discussion is on a historical and cultural event in which is quite surprisingly a little known American history event called Juneteenth. This is the official day of the emancipation for African Americans in Texas and the last of the Confederate States. Today, Justin, Arash, Bethany, and myself will be going over the history of Juneteenth, allowing you to be introduced in your education. We will give you the ways on how it is celebrated and its traditions. Finally, we will discuss the modern statistics on the topic and ask for a call to action for this underappreciated and unfamiliar holiday spread across this country. We hope you learn and pick up a new tradition to celebrate and teach your community. First up is Justin with our history of Juneteenth.
Thank you so much, Belina. Juneteenth is the celebration of the official end of slavery. Slavery was an absolute crucial element to the history and success of the United States of America. It wasn't until our bold 16th president decided freedom is a right and signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Issued by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863, it declared that all persons held as slaves are and henceforward shall be free. This was African Americans' biggest win. Word did not get out quickly, though. It wasn't until the end of the Civil War that Texans received great news about the Emancipation Proclamation. On June 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger arrives in Galveston, Texas, to deliver the news of the emancipation and the end of the Civil War. This was the first celebration of Juneteenth, and African Americans in Galveston continued celebrating every year after that. There are many speculations around what took 2.5 years for news to arrive in Galveston. The most popular belief is that Confederates simply did not respect the proclamation and chose to ignore it. But fast forward to the 20th century, and celebration has spread to several neighboring states. After slaves departed from their plantations, some moved to other states, such as Oklahoma and Arkansas. These African Americans brought with them Juneteenth, but it wasn't until the Civil Rights Movement, when African Americans really came together, that Juneteenth was spread on a national level and evolved a bit more. After African Americans were freed from slavery, they continued to be looked down as lesser people. Segregation separated the lives of blacks and whites and kept black people from having a voice of their own. In the 1950s and 60s, civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. spoke on a national level and helped everyone come together to bring an end to segregation. After the success of his movement, Martin Luther King Jr. decided, with the help of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, to gather a group of people together and march into the Capitol to discuss problems in poorer communities. Unfortunately, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in April 1968, 1 month before the scheduled march. Ralph Abernathy assumes leadership and plans the march to happen on June 19th, 1968. This created an opportunity for all people to come together as humans and spread love. These people revived Juneteenth on a national level, and after the movement, marchers went back home and brought Juneteenth to their family and their friends. This caused the holiday to spread like wildfire. There's a lot of talk about what the future holds for Juneteenth, and many organizations are seeking to recognize this day as a national holiday. Now that the history of Juneteenth is a bit more clear, how is this holiday actually celebrated? Arash is going to walk us through the answer to that question.
Thank you, Justin. Respect and appreciation for all of our differences grow out of exposure and working together. And that is the spirit of Juneteenth, which results in creating new bonds of friendship and understanding among us. And to create this understanding, we need to know a bit about culture and celebrations of this hopefully soon-to-be national holiday. To start with, the Juneteenth flag is full of symbols. To symbolize that the slaves and their descendants were Americans, the flag consists of colors red, white, and blue. The star in the middle pays homage to Texas, while the bursting new star on the horizon of red and blue fields represents a new people and a new freedom. Second are the activities that take place during the celebrations. To compare with the early years, unfortunately, these activities have faced a decline. However, rodeos, fishing, barbecuing, and baseball are just a few of typical Juneteenth activities you may witness today. Barbecue is often established as a center of attention, and certain foods such as the strawberry soda pop are popular and synonymous with these celebrations. Next is the education and self-improvement that Juneteenth has almost always focused on. Therefore, guest speakers are brought in and elders are called upon to narrate the stories and events of the past. Prayer services are also a major part of these celebrations. And finally, I'd like to mention one of the earliest documented land purchases in the name of Juneteenth. The purchase of Emancipation Park in Houston, Texas, which had become the Juneteenth celebration site in 1898. In this park, as many as 20,000 African Americans once flowed through during the course of a week, making the celebration one of the state's largest. In these celebrations, they acknowledge the many roles and contributions of African American spirit to our society. They embrace the past as well as the future that only unity, respect, and appreciation can bring. And now Bethany will tell you about Juneteenth in modern times.
Thank you, Rash. It has been 147 years since the first Juneteenth celebration in Emancipation Park in Houston, Texas. You may be someone who does not have any direct ties or impact to Juneteenth, and you may be asking yourself, why should Juneteenth be something of significance to me? Even though we may not celebrate the same holidays, we all should strive to help support one another. According to the U.S. Census Bureau in 2017, they estimate there is about 47.5 million African Americans in the United States. The National Juneteenth Observation Foundation is working hard to make Juneteenth a recognized holiday in all states, as well as to introduce a curriculum to teach Juneteenth to all schools, due to Juneteenth only being taught in predominantly African American classrooms. Another way that Juneteenth is being spread nationwide is by Barack Obama. During his presidency, he issued statements to mark Juneteenth from 2009 to 2016, spreading the awareness even more. African Americans find that the legacy of slavery affects the position of Black people in our current society, finding that the United States has not done enough to recognize and properly amend for the loss slaves endured. One way that African Americans have shown progress is by their significant contribution to our military. During the Civil War, there was about 200,000 African American men who served in the Navy and Army for the Union. As of the fiscal year of 2016, active duty enlisted men in the United States made up 17%, while active duty enlisted women made up 29%. Another way they have shown their determination is by overcoming obstacles, even with less opportunity and access to resources than whites. 22% of African Americans of ages 25 and higher have college degrees. A few of these opportunities and resources that they do not have access to is due to the wage gap. The wage gap results of the industrialization of obstacles Black people face in building wealth. African Americans are less likely to work in jobs that carry benefits such as retirement savings due to historical occupation segregations. Debt tends to be more detriment to Blacks than whites, largely because of the type of debt they owe, such as car or student loans. African American students are less likely than whites and Asians to have access to college level and or ready courses. In 2012, only 57% of African American students have access to college level math and science classes, while 71% of white students have access to the same courses. While African Americans have made progress from the unfortunate events of the past, there is still progress to be made. By majorities becoming an ally in Juneteenth, we can help to merge the gap of equality and help support one another towards success. We still have the responsibility to amend and celebrate the history of slavery to freedom.
Great job, team. Now, in conclusion, Juneteenth is a fun, lively celebration in the African American community of the first day that all slavery was abolished in Texas and in the remaining Confederate states. Remember, this was 2.5 years after slavery was ended, and the slaves were not told until June 19th, 1865, which is astonishing. This is American history and a day that should be known nationally as a federal holiday for all of our culture. We will continue to fight for the cause to get the word of Juneteenth across the states. People celebrate holidays for many reasons. Some celebrate for religious reasons, such as Hanukkah, Christmas, Ramadan, and some for remembrance, like the 4th of July, Memorial Day, to celebrate lost troops. Many people choose to celebrate the ones that we love on birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, but Juneteenth is a holiday to celebrate African American freedom, and it also highlights history, culture, and all of the achievements that the African Americans have won in the past 2 centuries. With June 19th approaching, how will you be celebrating the diverse culture of Juneteenth? Thank you.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, with the white gleam of our stars cast